All right. So I'd like to do the class tonight, similar to last week, just to take a moment to check in with you about your practice during the week, what happened, what maybe wasn't easy to do or you're confused about, or what was a success you'd like to share. We're talking about benefactors. I had you consider three types of benefactors, and did a little benefactor meditation. So I want to just check in and see um, what you noticed and see if there's anything that I can be helpful with. Diane, go ahead.
One thing that struck me, I sort of attached the benefactor meditation to my usual morning meditation.
Good.
Um,
Did you do it at the beginning or the end?
at the end,
The end. Okay.
the end. And the first day I did it, I don't remember if it happened last week, but the first day I did it, I was thinking about childhood, and I could not think of a benefactor.
Mhm.
And it was upsetting. Then you move on to present, and then I think it's like a spiritual benefactor. And I did it again the next day, and I actually got into a discussion with my husband, and it led to this whole exploration. And then I remembered this woman who lived sort of across the street, and I think she was Alice. I don't remember what she looked like, but I would go to her house, and we would, for some reason, I loved maps, and we would just sit and look at maps. And I remember it was just this safe little place. So it really led me to dig deep. Um, anyway, it was just an interesting um, trying to come up with someone from childhood.
Yeah.
The way you described it, I actually had written it down, and I was thinking, it was a challenge, which surprised me.
Yeah. And it can be a challenge, I think, because our minds aren't used to going down these roads. And I think the more you do this, sometimes people pop up as benefactors that you have forgotten or you didn't expect. I talked about my sixth grade teacher last week, and I hadn't given that any thought actually. uh, but it has stayed with me. I've actually stuck with that. Wow, that was significant in my life, and I have not thought about that for a long time. So that is the course of the practice. Is you kind of open the doors, and sometimes you're stuck. You don't quite know what to work with, but in time it emerges. The places in your psyche that know what it is to be, feel someone else's goodwill and be comfortable and safe with them, they start to open. They start to let you know. So thank you. So let's see. You're unmuted, Lynn. Go ahead if you're
I'm
that
probably
way because you
making
want
all
to
kinds
speak.
of noise. Well, no, but since you called on me, yeah, this morning I was writing about benefactors. I haven't been doing it all week, but I found myself writing 3 whole pages, and that was a really useful thing to do. I noticed how in my childhood, I felt like, as I was writing, the main presence of just having this grandmother who lived nearby who I could just go and sit with. And really, she just talked to me endlessly, I think, told whole family histories. And so that just shows that power of grandmother and grandchild, just that safe place where I didn't really remember most of it, but it was a feeling of just being in the space, and all the other things she would do that were grandmotherly, having to do with food and treats. But
Mhm.
what it struck me as I was trying to go through early childhood up, that my teachers in the younger schools, I didn't really remember very much as benefactors. And there were a couple though, and I remember their kindness. So I think that kind of teacher who decides that they need to treat you special in some certain way. And then high school, there were so many more. So it was more, I was appreciating people, but then also was having the awareness. I engaged a lot more in my world, I think, by the time I got to high school, that I had just come alive in a different kind of way.
Mhm.
I got that out of it.
All right, great. I like that you're writing about it. I think that's a powerful way to work with this. So thank you.
Hmm.
But Tanis.
But related to what you were talking about with sometimes with this getting stuck, you know, or and then eventually being a road you might go down. I found that I got stuck, but not stuck in a bad way. It turned out to be quite wonderful. I couldn't quite think of the of someone in my childhood, just sort of little ones. And then I can't believe I forgot it, but I had an aunt and uncle, particularly an aunt who lived up in Iowa, and I was in Texas. I was the eldest of four children, and it was kind of those days in the 50s when children were, to be seen, not heard. And this my aunt and uncle had been married a while, but they had no children, and there was quite a story behind that. But um, they invited me up 2 different summers. It was just for 2 weeks each time, and all by myself. They invited me, and I think because I was the oldest, and it was just they attended to it, especially my aunt. She was like this wondrous presence. I can just see her as I talk, of this wonderful smile and so kind. And she, arranged for me to have swimming lessons, to meet a couple of girls. This was a little tiny farm town in Iowa, and my uncle had feed mill. That was his business. He made fill for the farmers, and he liked to take, and I was curious about all that. He loved to take me out to sit with him and talk to the farmers, and it was so much different from my city life. But anyway, I want other people to say their experiences, but I couldn't get past that. I did try,
Uh-huh.
and came up with a few people, but I couldn't click in. It was just my aunt,
So
and my
stay with that. Absolutely stay
what do
with
I do?
that.
Yeah, what do I?
Don't feel you have to like cover the whole ground. You have a lifetime to consider your benefactors. Right now, this is the one that's working. And what really matters is the feeling that comes when you remember these people.
Oh,
That's what you want to bask in, is the feeling that comes when you remember these people. In some ways, whether you have one or you have 50 benefactors doesn't matter. Is that what happens in your body when you can recall what it's like to be around somebody who cares about you, and you can feel it in a very like basic way, the way children do. It's, it's part of the value of this, remembering a benefactor as your child, is because as children, we're not so, intellectually preoccupied. And so just on a felt level, we're more on our feelings, and we feel people's love, we feel their caring or their indifference, it all registers with us. So that's all to say, you got a good one. Go ahead and just
stay with, yeah,
stay with
the heart thing, like I've always loved that particular aunt, and my siblings also. We always we comment on her, like what a wonderful woman aunt,
Yeah.
but this was so different. And you're right. This was like totally, I was basking in the
Yes.
moment in her caring and love. So it was
Exactly.
really
You were the only
different.
one when you had four, you had four
Yeah.
of you. So it's very, very special. So
So
thank you.
thank you. I loved that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
That excerpt that
I was
that
hoping this would be an exercise that would please people, because it potentially is a very, very enriching one.
Yeah.
So anybody else want to comment on just what you noticed doing this? And everything's fair game in terms of what actually happened, even not doing it and resisting or whatever. It's all okay. I'm going to mute you, Tanis. There. Anyone else?
Can you
Not
hear
sure.
me?
There, Susan. Okay. Go
Okay.
ahead.
I have my life about 6 months, but I was like 10 years, and she lived next door to us. And she had just come back. She and her husband had just come back from Vietnam. They were um, and her husband worked at the Air Force base near a house. And when I would go over into her house after school every day, it was like all these exotic things from Vietnam all over the place. And she had a stuffed leopard in the corner. And when you walked in the door, it was just this amazing feeling of being in a totally different place. And about 6 months after she moved in, my family was getting ready to move. We were moving overseas to the Bahamas. And this woman, I was afraid want to go. I was 10 years old, and she talked me through it about all the wonderful things I was going to see and that the world was my oyster. And she really helped me move forward in terms of this movement. And then when we moved, I realized that she was really right. And in a lot of ways, I was an English as a second language teacher. And in a lot of ways, I feel like she helped me move in that direction way back when, to take an awe-inspiring look at all these different cultures and different things, and sort of give me a new perspective on the world. And so over the years, I really tried to get in touch with her after we moved, and she moved down to Maryland. And I kept trying. A couple times I tried to go to her house and visit her, but I never was able to. And I feel really regretful that I was never able to tell her what she meant to me at that age, at 10 years old, because she gave me such a feeling of worthiness within myself. And so, yeah, that was the person in my life, my benefactor. And I still, to this day, am extremely grateful to her for what she gave me.
Wonderful. And you named the feeling too, the worthiness when someone, gives you that sort of attention and works with a difficult kind of feeling and opens a world for you. It's beautiful. Yeah. So stay with the worthy feeling as you think about this person. Thank you. Okay, Rich.
So, on my recollections of a benefactor, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah. It was a little tricky because during the week of doing this exercise, I did not do this exercise, but as we've been talking about it, I've come up with a really clear one. And his name is Chuck. He was someone who was instrumental as I was coming of age in the Unitarian Universalist Church. And Chuck was someone who ran a lot of the different youth groups that we had. And throughout a period of, I'd say, 2 or 3 years, throughout the UU Church, and I might conflate Chuck with some of the different events in the UU Church, but it was just something where him and some of the other adults there really took an interest in the concerns that we as high schoolers had, and we were tasked with in different kinds of classes with defining what spirituality meant to us. We were just doing things that teenagers do. We would have a lock-in at the church, and we'd all bring a lot of music and movies to watch, and we talk about that. And this is like 1991 or so. We went to New York City, and Chuck helped get us in to see the Statue of Liberty, and each kid got to choose one thing, and my thing was to take the entire class to the Bowery to CBGB. So it's just a dingy club, but there's just a lot of legend and music circles behind it. But all these years later, thinking what it must have been like to have these. They must have been in their mid 40s or early 50s or something, but just taking this like awkward 17-year-old kid to the Bowery in New York because he wants to see the music things, like, that just fills me with warmth, and the feeling that Chuck and his other adult leaders really had an interest in learning what made the UU youth congregation tick. And yeah.
They gave that quality of attention where they really wanted to know you and what was important to you, and they didn't try to impose what was important to them onto you. That's beautiful. Yeah, beautiful. I love hearing these stories of people that have touched you. It's really lovely.